What does it mean to be community-centric? One aspect of a healthy community is that its members are connected. There are a lot of theses, a lot of well-written articles, and a lot of heavy, dry books written on community and connection. We can really dig deep into this topic, and we can talk for an hour on what it takes to connect a community. But one thing that can facilitate connectivity from a design standpoint is providing the space for it to happen. When public space starts to open up and people start to use it, people showing up is kind of self-fulfilling because people attract people. It's a phenomenon that's kind of difficult to explain. In this book from our great idol, Jane Jacobs, the activity of people running errands or getting food is attractive to other people. And this is something city planners and architectural designers find hard to understand. The simple fact is, people love watching people. But how do you create a public space that people will use? To answer this question, today we're going to look at a street that was turned into a pedestrian-only pathway and what it did for the community. And it's not in New York City, but across the Hudson River in Jersey City, New Jersey. And you know you're in Jersey when you see the other side of the Statue of Liberty. Welcome to Urban Caffeine. My name is Thea and you're watching a channel that turbocharges the way you think of urban life. Subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell so you won't miss future videos. And while we're at it, make sure to hit that like button. Almost a decade ago, Jersey City, just outside of Manhattan, decided to temporarily close down just one block of Newark Avenue. Just one block, no more, no less. And it wasn't even 24 hours. It was only closed off on the weekends and parts of the weekdays. Now, why would they do such a thing? For some context, we have to go back another half decade to 2009. Back in New York City, at the intersection of 7th Avenue and Broadway, which is also known as Times Square, there were a lot of accidents happening. So the city decided to experiment by closing portions off Broadway to cars so it can only be used by pedestrians. Could you imagine Times Square today not having a pedestrian plaza? Today, when you look at Times Square with all its activities, foot traffic, and the famous ball drop, it's easy to think that naturally, Times Square had always been a plaza. Since the dawn of the universe, it just makes sense. But that's not always the case. It was only closed off in 2009, giving room for pedestrians. When this happened, businesses were so worried that they'll lose profit, they'll lose customers because people wouldn't be able to drive to their storefront. But after a year of being temporarily closed, the accidents in this area decreased by quite a lot because people were no longer walking on the street since there was so much sidewalk real estate available. And as for businesses worrying about the loss of customers, this open street brought even more foot traffic to Times Square. Because as we said earlier, people attract people. And the more foot traffic there is, the more potential for getting customers. So by 2010, the city said that, hey, this is so good, let's make it permanent. And that meant that this portion of Broadway would have to be raised so that it's flush with the height of the sidewalks, chairs and sitting fixtures would be added, and later on, bollards would be installed too. Hooray for bollards! By 2013, phase 1 of the plaza would be complete, which is this south portion, and the entire plaza by 2016. But as phase 1 of the Times Square Plaza was wrapping up, the benefits of public open space were already clearly visible. So much so that back in Jersey City, the local government wanted to use this method as an attempt to tame their own streets. And not only that, but to also boost the local businesses in this area, since there's a PATH station nearby that takes commuters to and from Manhattan. The idea was that foot traffic can be seated by the commuters that were already using the trains. And just like what happened at Times Square, the opinions were split on this. Restaurants loved it because they could put out tables and chairs and it made their establishments attractive to diners. And mind you, this was all before the pandemic, when dining outdoors was quite novel. The community loved it because it gave another outdoor option to do, especially in the summer. Whether people came here to eat or not, hanging out in this area brought comfort because evidence of visible life was happening. Just imagine people walking their dogs, kids playing, groups of friends gathering. It's become one of those places where
I want to go to there.
Of course, when there are supporters, there will always be critics, and other businesses hated this. 1, they were complaining because this street was going to lose 15 parking spots. 2, it was going to be hard to get deliveries in. 3, just like Times Square, they were worried that they were going to lose their customers because they wouldn't be able to drive to their storefront. And lastly, there was this criticism that this area was trying too hard to be New York. First of all, when I read about the complaint of the loss of 15 parking spots, I was thinking, are you kidding me? The loss of 15 spots in exchange for thousands of people that are going to use this space, I think is a no-brainer sacrifice. But of course, I'm sitting in 2023, and in 2014, I'm sure the situation was kind of scary for those who had a hard time envisioning the future or couldn't envision what this open street would mean for their business. The thing about change, whether it's this street or anything in the world, is that there will always be critics and supporters. The people of the world are so diverse and complex that there's really no one-size-satisfies-all solution to anything. The best we could do is to strive for more pros than cons. And this open street had more pros than cons because over time, the street brought in a lot of bike and foot traffic. Closing off the street to cars brought in more customers, lessened accidents, and started to make this place look more inviting and be a place where people actually liked going to.
I want to go to there.
To the point that some people didn't mind having to walk an extra block or two to run an errand here or visit a shop or restaurant. By the following year, the street closure became permanent, and improvements to the street began. By 2018, this pedestrian street extended to another block, and by 2021, the plaza was fully complete. This meant that the grade of the road was lifted to level with the sidewalk for accessibility, permanent sitting fixtures were added, so were trees and lights, a stage for summer performances, and tons of bollards to prevent accidents. You can't forget the bollards. So this one's for you, World Bollard Association. And every now and then, you can enjoy the presence of a street performer. And hey, this plaza also won an award for how well it made the area a community-centric place, to the point that other public places started opening up in other areas. Today, the Newark Pedestrian Plaza has provided a gathering place for people all year round and just made the experience of being in Jersey City overall attractive.
I want to go to there.
But you don't have to be New York or New Jersey to gain the benefits of what a pedestrian-friendly space can do to an area. Think of towns with weekly farmers market where a street or two are blocked off, or well-used public parks. In so many places in the US, you go from home to restaurant, back to home, without seeing much more. It's nice to see a place where you can go to a restaurant, then be able to enjoy your post-dinner in a nice environment where you see life happening. I think this is good for your well-being and a major mood booster. Plus, you'll never know what stories you might encounter when watching the world around you. Public space is a good way to build health and well-being to the community. From this Newark Avenue example, one quick way to create a pedestrian-friendly public space is to reclaim a street and make it car-free, or at least slim down the street and widen the sidewalks to give pedestrians more space. If pedestrians are the priority when designing a street, not only does it lessen accidents and help businesses that line the street, but it enriches the community. But, and a big but, people get so apprehensive when you talk about squeezing down streets so that the city has less streets. They're worried that it's going to build heavy traffic. And then there's the argument that there are people in the city that do need private transportation, for example, the elderly or those with mobility challenges. But if the majority of us who are able-bodied use an alternative mode like walking, biking, or public transit, the streets can be cleared of traffic for those who really need private vehicles, even if you slim down the streets. I believe people are attached to their cars because they're attached to comfort. I think we should design cities that make people want to walk the streets and not force them to walk the streets. But reclaiming a street and making it pedestrian-friendly is only one element to the success of Newark Avenue. It helped that the street was already dense to begin with, meaning that shops and businesses were already near each other at an appropriate walking distance. Creating urban density is important. If you want to learn more on how density plays a role in creating a walkable city, check out this video I made on the missing middle neighborhood. Link is in the description. If you want some behind-the-scenes commentary or are curious as to what I do in New York City, I post videos on Patreon where I upload twice a week. Not only will you have access to exclusive content, but you also support this channel to continue to make more videos. Check out patreon.com/Urban Caffeine. My deepest thanks to current patrons who continue to support this channel. Until next time, thank you so much for watching and happy New Yorking.